Welcome back to another edition of Out of Bounds. I'm Rashad Milligan. As you can see, I'm out here in the field, actually walking right now outside of Mercedes-Benz Stadium, home to the most disappointing franchise in the National Football League, which are the Atlanta Falcons, just in case you were wondering. With me, I have my co-hosts, as always, Malik Brown and Curtis Johnson. Fellas, how are you guys doing?
A little bit better if we had a Lion victory. And you dogging the Atlanta Falcons, who lost 27-26. My Detroit Lions lost by 3 points. And if we could have mustered up 4 points and split them between us, we could have had two victories. See, Richard, you having a problem because you think the Atlanta Falcons, who were good, are going to be good. I'm just looking for my Detroit Lions to be better, and they look better today.
The small victories. Malik, how are you feeling right now?
Doing good, man. Week 1 NFL season started, man. I'm in it. Just been watching games all day, but feeling good nonetheless.
I heard it. And in the midst of all of that, Bubba Wallace gets a victory, another victory under his NASCAR wing just a few moments ago at the time we're recording this. So congratulations to Bubba Wallace. Of course, Francis Tifo on the men's tennis end. He became the first Black man since Arthur Ashe to make the semifinal in a major tournament. And he's been the furthest American male to go that far into the U.S. Open since 2007. So about 15 years. So salute to Francis Tifo as well.
Right, absolutely. And I think, don't they play in Arthur Ashe Stadium or something?
They do. The U.S. Open is in Arthur Ashe Stadium up there in New York.
Well, you're going to get our history all the time on rolling out of bounds. I'm kind of like Fat Albert piece. If you're not careful, you're going to learn something.
No, I heard it. Education and entertainment, that's what it's all about. And speaking of education, we have a very special guest in the building today, Mr. Dan Taylor. Now, Dan, he wrote the book on Kenny Washington, who broke the color barrier for the Los Angeles Rams. Dan, first things first, how are you feeling?
I'm doing great. It's great to be with you guys. Thanks for the opportunity.
Amazing to have you. Now, I guess just kind of the first general question that you always get on these things. What's a quick synopsis about the book with Kenny Washington?
Well, this is maybe the greatest football player of all time. And it's just amazing that we don't know about him and that we don't celebrate him. And when we talk about the all-time greats, we don't think about him. And here was a guy that did remarkable things on the football field, could have potentially preceded Jackie Robinson into baseball. He was that good. An actor in about a dozen films, just a remarkable individual and an inspiring life story.
He sounds like the triple threat in everything. And it's always remarkable to hear about the athletes of yesteryear and just how much they could do and how much they accomplished, like Jackie Robinson himself. Like you said, Jackie could have gone both ways. Jackie was a great running back. And at UCLA in college,
Track
so
guy too.
It's exactly. So, when you hear things like that, it's just kind of amazing to think about how amazing these guys were back then.
Well, I mean, and it's kind of sad too. I personally appreciate anybody and everybody that promotes the history of America that happens to include Black folks too. And just so surprised that, how we say in the side, like Jim Brown was, probably one of the greatest lacrosse players, or how Will Chamberlain, all the amazing feats he could do other than, the what he put out there with the 20,000 women, he could do much more than that. Other than, playing sidekick to Arnold Schwarzenegger and, that Conan movie. So Hey, Grace Jones was in that movie too. But we're here to talk about Kenny Washington.
I had a feeling you were going to tie it somewhere with Detroit or something, Kurt. Something was coming. Dan, I wanted to ask, you know, what kind of inspired you to write this book?
Well, Malik, I was having this conversation with a buddy of mine. He's a UCLA guy and played baseball there in the late 50s and then taught there in the 60s. And he was telling me one day, we were talking about Jackie Robinson, and he's telling me that a couple of professors in his department had been on the UCLA campus in 39 when Kenny and Jackie were the backfield. And they said, as great as Jackie was, Kenny was far better. And it was the first I'd ever heard that. And then my friend later was talking about his first coaching job at a high school in LA, and that one of his colleagues had been a teammate on the 39 UCLA team. And he just matter-of-factly said the same thing. And I'd heard of Kenny. I mean, I knew that he was the guy who reintegrated the NFL in 46. And I knew from going to a few UCLA games over the years, I'd seen that his number was retired and obviously meant he was a pretty darn good player. But I really didn't know a lot about him until I got into it. And as I got into it and learned more and more, this is a guy that could throw a football 100 yards in the air. This is a guy that had the speed to run away from DBs, the power to run over linebackers. And his coaches said he was even better on defense. Here was a guy that, they said he played 1 year of baseball at UCLA, was the second leading hitter in the conference, only because he got the flu late and was weakened in the last couple of weeks, but hit 404. And scouts were saying that he was a major league guy. And I thought, why do we not hear about this guy? Why do we not know about this guy? And next thing I know, the sleeves were rolled up and I was all in. I mean, it was just such an amazing and inspiring story. And I was really honored to be able to share it.
Yeah. And how much was the family involved in the writings, or if you could please give us, not just a synopsis on the book, but,
Absolutely.
some highlights. I mean, because
you're right, Curtis. And it was challenging. They're wonderful people, his daughter, Karen, and his grandsons. And they were really upfront with me when I reached out to them initially. They were very excited. But it was funny because Karen shared with me that she came into the family much later after Kenny's playing career was done, and that she just knew him as Daddy. And she said she came home from middle school one day to find her dad sitting at the kitchen table chatting with Willie Mays. And she said, my dad must be somebody. Listening to what they were talking about, she said, my dad must have been somebody. And she started trying to learn more and more about her dad. And that was about the time that he got sick. And of course, he passed away at a very, very young age. And as everybody shared with me in the family that, Kenny's son, Kenny Jr. was the guy who really had all the stories. He was born a year after Kenny left UCLA, and he had all the stories. He passed away, though, a number of years ago. His grandsons have been great, but they shared with me that their knowledge was very limited, and they've been really excited to learn more and more about their grandfather. There were people that I found. Sugarfoot Anderson was his star receiver with the Hollywood Bears. And he went on with Woody Strode, who was Kenny's best friend. And they went up to Canada and they integrated the Canadian League. And Everett Sugarfoot Anderson stayed up there and made a life for himself in Canada. And his partner, we spoke at great length. And she said, I never had the chance to meet Kenny, but Jackie Robinson came up here a few times and stayed with us. And it seemed like Everett and Jackie just sat around telling Kenny Washington stories. And she said it was just amazing to hear all these tales. Tracked down the daughters of the UCLA coach, and they had great stories about the time that the players would spend in their home. They just revered Kenny. He was a favorite of theirs. And then tracked down, it was funny, I was speaking to the daughter of the UCLA quarterback on that 39 team, Ned Matthews. And they said, well, you've spoken to B, haven't you? And I said, well, who's B? And they said, oh, that's Ned's wife. And I'm thinking, and before I could spit it out, they said, yeah, she's 102. And so I gave her a call, and she was amazing.
Wow.
Her memory was phenomenal. And I ran a story by her that I had heard that before a game in 39 at Stanford, that Kenny and Jackie and a couple of the other African-American players on the team, along with several of the white players, went into a restaurant, and the black players were denied service. And Ned Matthews, according to some things I read, said, if they don't eat, we're not eating. And they said, he said, let's go, guys. And he took the team out of the restaurant. And she remembered him talking about that and added a little bit to the story. And so it was just amazing to be able to track these people down. There was one, when I started the project, there was one teammate still alive. He was 104, and he was in a facility in Santa Barbara. And a friend of mine had spoken to him on another subject and said, he's tremendous. His memory's good. He's very lucid. And he was trying to set me up with the family to be able to speak to the guy. And then we got word that the guy had passed away, unfortunately.
Yeah. No, thanks for sharing that. I mean, and listening audience, you know, we try to bring you a perspective and from different angles and some things that, you know, you don't hear oftentimes in sports. And these things are valued because, you know, the brother we're talking about, I mean, you know, I call myself a sports aficionado, and I knew more about Pooh Richardson before this gentleman got on to talk about Kenny Washington. You know, and that's a travesty. And I personally appreciate you sharing that because as you can see, I'm the OG of the I'm the OG of the show. So you know, thanks for bringing that up.
Oh, no, thank you.
Dan, I have one question that kept ringing throughout my mind as you were telling kind of like the synopsis of the book and, you know, some of the history and kind of the process behind making the book. I wanted to know, what did you learn about, I guess, just how much undiscovered Black history there is while like kind of putting together this book? Like, you know, like you kind of gave a background of why don't we know about this guy? The more and more you found out about him, the more interesting facts. But just in general, how much did you find out about kind of how much Black history there is out there that people don't know about?
Oh, there's so much. There is so much. I mean, I've always really loved baseball, been very passionate about baseball. I'm not a fan of analytics, but that's for another day. And I never knew that there was a winter league in Los Angeles. It started in the 20s and ran a year or two after World War II. And I'm giving this as an example. And it was the only integrated baseball league in America. And the guy that ran it would actively recruit. He would actually go to the owners of the Negro League teams and say, hey, send your guys out here in the offseason. Okay. And you had major league guys. I mean, you had American League, National League guys, Pacific Coast League players. Many of the Pacific Coast League players were former big league guys. You had Negro League players, Cool Papa Bell, Double Duty Ratcliffe. And Kenny Washington played in this game and was in this league and was the leading hitter one year. But I never knew this league existed. When Kenny Washington came out of UCLA, a new professional football league started on the West Coast, the Pacific Coast Professional Football League. And at that time, outside of the NFL, there were 4 regional leagues around the country, this being the most recent one at that time that started up. And the Pacific Coast League was the only integrated football league in America. And it was the competition level was outstanding. And I fully believe that, you know, Kenny Washington was far and away the most popular athlete in Los Angeles. And I fully believe that Kenny Washington is the reason the Rams came to Los Angeles, because Dan Reeves had looked at Dallas. He'd put a deposit down on the Cotton Bowl, but there was no league in Texas. But in LA, Kenny Washington was selling out Gilmore Stadium every single weekend. And Dan Reeves could look at that and see what kind of support the Rams might get if they came to Los Angeles. So, but there were so many. Those are just a couple of examples of things, Black history that I came across and trying to learn about Los Angeles and the different districts of Los Angeles. It was fascinating. It was really interesting. But I think there's so much out there that we really may not have even scratched the surface.
So you kept mentioning Dan Reeves, and when you said Dan Reeves, I'm thinking head coach Denver Broncos. I'm thinking, head coach Atlanta Falcons. So I'm learning something else. So it was like two Dan Reeves.
Yeah, Dan Reeves was a New Yorker who his father was a grocery store magnate. Dan Reeves inherited millions, and he bought the Rams. They were in Cleveland.
Okay.
And so he initially wanted to immediately move the Rams to New York and have yet another team in New York, but it didn't happen. But he wasn't happy in Cleveland. They didn't draw. In 45, they won the NFL championship, but they didn't play in Municipal Stadium where ultimately the Browns would play. They played in an old baseball stadium that seated 17,000. And here they are, the 45 NFL champs, and they're not selling it out. And by contrast, in LA, you got Kenny Washington and his Hollywood Bears playing in Gilmore Stadium, 22,000 week in, week out. But yeah, there were two Dan Reeves, and one was a very wealthy guy who owned the Rams and is the guy that brought the first major league team to the West Coast when he brought the Rams out for 46.
So just speaking with you, the listening audience can tell, as can I, that this book is going to be a potpourri of information. It sounds like it's going to be some statistics. Does the book also have things of nostalgia, pictures of nostalgia?
Oh, it does. It does. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if you're a picture guy, you'll be happy.
Okay. And how could the listening audience, and including myself, but of course, my book has to be autographed by you.
We'll get that taken care of.
How can we get the book?
It is available online, Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com. Publisher is Rowman and Littlefield, and their website is Rowman.com, and that's spelled ROWMAN.
And what's the coupon code for the Rolling Out family?
Well, I would think it's just my email. You just connect with me, and we'll make it happen.
Dan, a question I had, just like kind of in the meantime, a follow-up to that was like kind of even a more worldwide perspective on this. Obviously 2022, there's been such a large discussion about education system and whether or not to put critical race theory into the schools, into grade school and everything. You learning what you learned, like you said, and there's so much Black history that, like you said, we haven't even scratched the surface of what we know. I guess, just after that experience of putting together this book, where do you stand on kind of the issue of critical race theory being taught in schools?
Well, I'm not knowledgeable enough about what it entails to give you an educated answer, but I would say that what I've learned says that there's a lot of Black history out there that needs to be part of our history taught. Learning about Kenny Washington going to Europe and during World War II to do USO tours, and that the Black troops were not taken care of over there. And in many of these countries, they had to be isolated away from the general population for safety reasons. And the USO was generally getting white entertainers and sending them to bases where predominantly white population. And there was a lot of anger coming from the Black troops that their morale was really struggling. They were put in difficult places and difficult tasks. And so there were some sports writers on the East Coast that really pushed the idea of getting some Black stars to go over. And I'm giving one example. I apologize for digressing, but I think stories like this are really important. We need to know about, as we're learning about World War II history, just as an example, we need to know about the tank troops, the Black tank troops and their successes. We need to know, just as we need to know, about the Tuskegee Airmen and their successes. So yeah, I'm sorry, getting a little verbose there, but yeah, it is what I learned. The things that I learned do tell me that there are tremendous Black impact stories and success stories that all have to be a part of the history that we learn and the history that's taught.
It's funny. It kind of reminds me of like how in the social justice realm, like we're just taught about MLK. And then like as a Black person, like your uncle might tell you about Malcolm X, and that's it. Like so it's funny. When you grow up, get to that college level, you learn about everybody, and then or at least more people. So like in the sports space, for example, like we know about Jim Brown, Muhammad Ali. Who's another one?
Jackie
Jackie
Robinson.
Robinson, of course. But that's it. Maybe
Yeah.
Hank Aaron. Like if you live in Atlanta, maybe you might hear about Hank Aaron. That's it.
Yeah.
So it's like, to hear about these other unsung heroes is exactly you can place in every single, I feel like, filled with Black people and Black history. Go ahead, Kurt.
No, and I'm old enough to say this because I've lived through it. I'm sick and tired of other people having an agenda and trying to co-opt, twist, churn, and do whatever to hurt our experience. And when you coin that term, critical race theory, I hate that term. I just like a better job of American history.
Yeah.
And I definitely don't want others telling me who my leader is. I definitely don't want to tell others, letting others tell me who I need to cheer for, because they have the media, they can highlight this sports guy. I mean, Sonny Liston was just as much champ as Muhammad Ali. He was Black too, and I'm okay that, he might have been a Shylock or heavy or whatever, just like I'm okay that Joe Frazier was left-handed, and the brother Dan, when he made mention about the Tuskegee Airmen, I like that he prefaced it about the tank group. Because see, once they make the movie Redbirds or whatever, people go get their flyer jackets and they think they got their fill, and the world says, okay, that's it, go sit down for 10 more years. But the movie Fury with my guy Brad Pitt and the rest of them, that could have been about a black, and that could have been about a black tank battalion. I mean, and it's not, and the beauty of it is, family, we're not talking about Avatar. We talking about real stuff that actually happened. And God bless you for bringing that to the world's attention. I got to learn, kids are learning about Fritz Pollard because they played John Madden. And Malik, our producer, who's been quiet, it's been how many minutes before I made a Detroit reference, but heck, Gus Johnson, the voice of Madden, is from Detroit. And he did that Alabama game yesterday. My guy, Gus. A Johnson.
Just had to do it, huh, Kurt? Just
I
had to
think
Every time. Bad in school, bad on the podcast.
well, like I think the thing with Fritz Pollard, like I stopped playing Madden consistently a few years ago. And one of the first times kind of like I learned about Fritz Pollard was really when we started working with the Fritz Pollard Alliance. And I felt horrible. I felt, especially considering the fact that I used to work in a small town where there was Marcus Pollard and, all these like NFL players with the last name Pollard, a small town in Alabama. Shout out to Lynette. And I had no idea who Fritz Pollard was.
Well, and then in one of our shows, Dan, we also highlighted that Roger Dale was making this too with the black quarterback, Colin Kaepernick, and he went to the school where the first black quarterback won the Rose Bowl, so he should definitely know about the plight of the black quarterback.
Which guest was that? Which guest was that, Kurt, that told us that?
I told
that
you
was
that.
A guess. Oh, I'm sorry.
Me.
I apologize. I thought it was a guess.
I mean,
Kurt.
Between you and Malik, the hate is so real, I can cut it with a knife.
But Rashad, if I could jump in to your point about history and Curtis about blending history in, growing up as a kid, one of the first sports books I was given as a gift, it was dealing with stars of all these different sports. And when I got to football and I'm reading about Sammy Baugh, and then I get researching this, and Sammy Baugh and Washington played each other. When he was with the Hollywood Bears, they played Washington in an exhibition game, and Washington's coach came out of it and said, "I want I want Washington. I want the Washington guy. And I'm thinking, okay, I read all about Sammy Baugh. Why didn't I read about Kenny Washington? And that's the thing that I just find amazing, that we get one set of history and we really don't get the full picture.
Yeah. 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 Say that, brother.
Dan, I want to ask you, what's your just going back to the book, what's your favorite page from the book and why
Oh.
that page?
Wow. Well, I was really, really pleased with the first chapter, describing his collegiate football debut and his becoming a star. It was really his coming out game. And the two things that I pointed out in that chapter, describing his first touchdown, but also how he scored 3 in his college debut. And I pointed out that at that time in Los Angeles, the 2 most popular athletes were Ernie Zamperini, who they made the movie about, the distance runner who was lost in World War II, and the famous racehorse of that day, who they've done a movie about. And they were headlines. They were just in the headlines constantly. And from that night of Kenny Washington's UCLA debut, they were never again in a headline. And Kenny Washington became the headliner. And so, I was really pleased with that. But overall, I'm really grateful for all the help that I got and the resources that were available and to be able to tell this story. So I'm really pleased with the book as a whole.
Dan, I got a question, and you can defer or because it's particularly opinionated. Help me understand what is so special about UCLA, because we have all these Division I schools and Ivy League schools and schools just period, that have athletics or, anything. What's so special about UCLA that they can have a coach like John Wooden, a player like Jackie Robinson, a player like Kenny Washington, a player like Lou Alcindor,
Arthur Ashe,
and have Jim, have Jim Morrison making music. How does that environment be that inviting? I mean, the only thing that I can think of that's sort of that kind of crazy is that Lawrence Taylor and Michael Jordan was at the University of North Carolina at the same time, or all those people, all them crazy people was at the University of Florida at one time. Tebow and Cam Newton, and Ryan Lochte and Yannick Noah.
Hernandez.
Yeah. So I'll shut up and listen.
Well, interesting question. UCLA has had a great history. In 1939, there were only 12 college football programs that were integrated, 25 Black players in all in college football, and 5 of them were at UCLA. They were way ahead of the game. And that was one of the questions that I was trying to get answered. And it was really challenging, and I never got what I was looking for. I wanted to know the mindset of Bill Spalding, who was the coach at that time, who recruited all of these athletes. And I could never find out. I reached out to family members. Ironically, his son lived here in Fresno, but he's since passed away. I think if I had the idea to write this book 10 years ago, I would have gotten a lot more insight before all these people passed. But the athletic director, when he would encounter difficulties when he was trying to book hotels, bus trips, things like that, he had a standard answer. He would say, "We're all God's children." And he indicated that he never really had a whole lot of difficulty in terms of booking games or booking road travel, things of that nature. Why UCLA? There's a lot of different reasons. I know that Kenny Washington played high school football for Jim Tunney Sr., whose son Jim Jr. was a very celebrated NFL official. And I was really honored that he wrote the foreword to the book. And Jim Sr. And had some assistant coaches at that high school that had played at UCLA, so they really strongly pushed Kenny in that direction. Kenny was very involved in the recruitment of Jackie Robinson. Jackie had planned to go to Oregon because his brother, Mac, who was an Olympic sprinter, was at Oregon. And then Jackie became very offended by some treatment that Mac received up in Eugene and decided he wasn't going to go there. And he had initially planned to go to Iowa, which had an integrated program. And rumor came to the Oregon coaches that things were falling apart. And the Oregon track coach caught a train for Los Angeles. And when he came back, an assistant saw him as he was walking into the building and said, "Is he gone?" And he just nodded. And they said, "UCLA?" And he said, "Yeah." And they said, "How'd they get him?" And he said, "A car." They did that with Kenny Washington as well. They gave him a car as well to come to UCLA. But yeah, it's interesting just how that became such a magnet for so much talent and being so progressive and ahead of the game.
So they were doing the Nick Saban back in the 30s.
Yeah, you can say
minute.
Kenny and
Hey.
Jackie were NIL decades before NIL.
Yeah, don't.
That's
don't
what a friend
say
of mine
that.
said when he read that chapter in the book.
Right. Yeah,
I was thinking about in the NBA with the Boston Celtics. So I remember one time I was telling the story about when Bill Russell was on the Hawks and why he never played for the Hawks, and when going back to that and seeing why the Boston Celtics had 11 champions, they were the only team to sign black players, and I was like, that makes sense. That's why they had 11 championships. But yeah, continue.
But no, UCLA was an interesting situation because it was situated in a part of Los Angeles that had, housing covenants. So if any of those players wanted to buy a house around the school, they couldn't. And barbershops around the school would not cut black people's hair. So yeah, it was very interesting that you had in that area, you had such a contrast. I had asked, I think I can share this, but I had asked Kenny's daughter about her father's relationship with Jackie Robinson. And they were friends. And Kenny was a real mentor to Jackie. Jackie, when he came into UCLA, he had a temper. And he really turned off a lot of his teammates. And Kenny would take him on long walks around the campus and talk to him about trying to control his temper and pick his battles. But I asked her about the relationship between the two, because they really were friends from that point until their dying days. And she said, my dad always felt that Jackie had a bit of resentment toward him. And I said, did it have anything to do with Kenny really being the big guy in town? And she said, oh, no. It had to do with their upbringing. And I was a little surprised. And she said, you have to remember, Jackie grew up in Pasadena in an all-white section of town, and they received a lot of abuse. He and his brothers really received a lot of abuse. Kenny grew up in a section of LA called Lincoln Heights, just east of and across the LA River from Dodger Stadium. At that time, Lincoln Heights was the immigrant section of LA. And the Washingtons were one of the very few black families in that area. You go through his school yearbooks, there may have been 2 or 3 blacks in the school. But it was an immigrant neighborhood. And it struck me, as I got looking through city directories and things, and, one of the funny side stories was the neighbors on either side of him and much of the block that he lived on, they were Italian immigrants. And Woody Strode, his teammate and best friend, told the story of when Kenny arrived at UCLA, everybody was kind of taken aback because he spoke with a bit of an Italian accent. But here were people who had come from all other parts of the world and didn't have that negative impressions of black people. And they just treated the Washingtons like another family trying to get ahead. And the neighbors, Kenny's parents were really not in his life. He was raised by his grandmother and his uncle. And the neighbors, one of the neighbors took him to church every morning before school, to mass every morning, and made sure that he wore a coat and tie to school. He was in and out of the homes of all of these neighbors and playing with their friends. And so the upbringings between he and Jackie was very, very different. And that's kind of what.
Dan, was Kenny light skinned or dark skinned?
Dark.
Okay.
Are you going to tie that back to Detroit anyway, Kurt?
Nah, bro, you know what I'm talking about. Because, Dan may not, through his research, understand that light-skinned, dark-skinned people, and if you from the South and from the city and, all that crap, he was alluding to it. But, Dan, as the listening audience knows, there's differences, but as we all know, in a room, if somebody is from Italy and somebody's from Sicily, they may look the same, but they ain't the same.
Right, right, right. No, his
And
his grandparents came out from Missouri. Yeah.
Yeah, I got bought out from one of my coworkers within a year, and I was like, "Dog, ain't you from ain't you Irish? I mean, ain't you English?" He said, "No, man, I'm from Scotland. My people from Scotland, we hate the English." But I don't feel bad. I don't feel bad at all, because our U.S. government, even esteemed Bob McNamara, did not understand. They was trying to lump Japanese and Chinese people together, and it was like, when they was round, like the same time when they was, what you talking about, when they was rounding them all up, like, dude, y'all don't know what y'all doing. Just because people are age anyway, it's just ignorance, man.
Right. Absolutely.
It's ignorance, and it's unwilling to understand that we're all human beings. That's that coach said, we all God's children. I say that too. And I ain't never talked to the man in my life. So that's, the God in us manifesting.
Well, we don't want to hold Dan too much longer tonight. Dan, are there any other things that you want to mention about the book? Go ahead, Kurt.
No, he part of the Rolling Out team. We'll invite him back. We gotta we gotta thank him for his service. He's definitely got to give all that information in a way that not only that we understand it on this podcast, that we can bring it back again. And I'm thanking him in advance, because he's doing the work that I needed to be doing and others need to be doing for my grandchildren.
Well, I'll get a quick Detroit bit of history in there, Curtis, because obviously 46, Kenny, and then a month later, Woody Strode signed with the Rams, and then September, they reintegrate the NFL. And when you look at his impact on the NFL in the 3 seasons he played, here the league hadn't assigned any black players for 12, 13 years. And in 48, in Kenny's last year, the Detroit Lions and the New York Giants also integrate. So Kenny impacted the league in that way. I really believe that the owners, I've read why the owners got cut the last black player in 33, Joe Lillard. And I do think that the way Kenny was treated and what they saw out of Kenny and Woody Strode, I think led other owners to go ahead and integrate their teams. But the Lions, I think, were number 2, and the Giants shortly after. So they were in that whole program as well.
Appreciate that.
But yes, and like I said, any other pressing information or vital points that you haven't brought up already?
No, guys, this was great. I think we really covered a lot. And I think one of the things that shocked me was, as I alluded to, was Kenny's baseball. Knew of him as a football player, did not know of him as a baseball player. Jackie tried to convince Branch Rickey to also sign Kenny when the Dodgers signed Jackie. And wow. 10 days kept that from happening. 10 days prior, the Rams had announced their move to Los Angeles. They were pressed to integrate in order to get a lease agreement to play in the Coliseum. And they reached out to Kenny and struck a deal. They wanted it kept quiet until the front office staff moved to Los Angeles in March, 2 months later. But about 10 days after he gave his word, the Dodgers reached out to him, and he told him, I've got something else I have to do. And then after his signing with the Rams was announced, he explained that he was a man of his word. He had given the Rams his word, and as much as he preferred baseball, as much as he wanted to play baseball, he was not going to go back on his word. And it was later, after he finished his football career and made 3 movies in 1949, that Leo Durocher and the Giants signed him. And he went to spring training with the Giants in 1950 and was the last player cut. So he almost got a big league baseball opportunity as well.
So he was Neon Deion way back when.
Well, I've said to people, Curtis, he was Bo Jackson with John Elway's arm.
Woo!
That's something serious. That's
I
something
don't-
serious.
Bro, Malik, I wish we was in the studio so somebody could have dropped the mic. Heck,
But
heck, I'll drop my cell phone.
but Dan, we appreciate it so much. Where can the people find you? They found out where to find the book. Where can they find you if you're on any social media right
my
now?
Twitter handle, my Facebook is Writing Guy, WRITINGUY. And yeah, I love to hear from people, and you guys shoot me your contact information and we'll work on getting that book your way.
All right, sounds amazing. And I'm sure Kurt, who has been asking for the book throughout the interview, but appreciate it the most. But thank you, Dan Taylor. The story of Kenny Washington. The book is out now. Everybody, go ahead and support Dan. We appreciate the time so much.
Thank you
Feel
very
free
much.
to go. We're going to talk about some, I guess, some current events or whatever in the sports world now. I guess where do you guys want to start for this week? You know, we opened up with talking about some of the NFL week one action. Go ahead, Kurt.
Yeah, we just give a brief recap, run a show, of what happened. I like to start with college football, some of the bigger games, particularly the Alabama-Texas game. I watched that personally from pillar to post. It's really kind of segues to what we were talking about. I mean, I'm almost thinking that Bryce Young just shattered the barrier. Because even though it was Gus, they were saying the things that they only said about white quarterbacks before. How he's a field general, his leadership, the reading of defenses, how he hangs tough in the pocket, and he's Mr. Clutch. Normally, what was the moniker on the black quarterback was a strong guard, a mobility, and the play. I mean, Bryce Young looked like a Rodney Peete on steroids. And I mean, it's kind of one of those things. I guess now that I actually seen it, I'll be listening for it more. But it was just talking about him like they talked about all the other Alabama quarterbacks. That made me proud. It also made me proud that Nick Saban got on his players for degrading the game. And it's not just because, I'm maturing as an individual myself. But the older I get, the less I like that showmanship and the individualism and the gangster stuff, in sports. I don't like that stuff. And I like how Coach said when his player, corrected his play, even though he used an explicit, correct his player for that type of activity. Mad props to my U of M Wolverines blowing out Hawaii, and it looks like they got a real quarterback now.
Well, hold on, Kurt. But before you move on with the rest of the roundup with college football, I want to stick on that and kind of go to the HBCUs, because this was a discussion I was having with kind of a couple of my friends yesterday, and it kind of popped up again last night. I don't really speak about the program or anything like that too much publicly or whatever like that, but I did want to address it. That how do I say this? Obviously, probably the most exciting thing that's going on in FCS football right now and HBCU football is Jackson State. When Jackson State blew the brakes off of FAMU last week in week one, like 59-3, whatever the score was, and they were interviewing Shedeur Sanders during the fourth quarter. He was, see, this is nothing to us. This is nothing. We do this every day. He's like, we chose to come to the SWAC. That's something he said since before last season of like, these other kids, they had to go to the SWAC. Like that was their only offer. We chose to come to the SWAC. We could have gone to any school in the country. We chose to come to the SWAC. A lot of the tone of certain individuals from that team has been, in my opinion, has come across as condescending to other HBCU programs, and the talent level or just the skill level of HBCUs in general. And while when they're outright asked about HBCUs, they say, "Oh no, we respect them. Football is football. The talent is there. These boys can play." Is plenty of other kids around the SWAC who should go to the NFL along with our kids should go to the NFL. But when you read between the lines of some of their other answers, it comes across as this is a charity case. And we were doing HBCUs a favor by doing this. We could have gone to Alabama. We could have gone to any school in the country. Those are their words, using their words. And I bring that up because last night, as they struggled against Tennessee State in the Southern Heritage Classic, thank goodness for their rush defense. Their rush defense didn't give Tennessee State's quarterback any type of seconds, any type of time back there. If it weren't for that, Tennessee State's defense was playing some pretty good doggone defense on Jackson State and their air attack and everything like that. It was a pretty close game. Jackson State just pulled away with the touchdown with, I think, about 3 minutes left out there as Shador threw a bomb into the end zone and they won the game 16-3, I believe the final score was. After the game, the coach, Deion Sanders, once again, Coach Prime, he goes on and someone asks him about, because, going into it in the offseason, he said, we're not playing that game. We're not playing the Southern Heritage Classic. We're pulling out of it. It doesn't benefit us contractually for the money of our program. It doesn't benefit us. Southern Heritage Classic said, Jackson State signed contracts long before you came into the picture, sir. Y'all got to play this game. They go back a little legal thing. Jackson State got to play the game. They get to the week of, hey, coach, you said in the offseason y'all didn't want to play this game because it didn't benefit y'all. How do you feel about it now? We still don't want to play it. We respect Tennessee State. We still don't want to play the game. They play the game. After the game, someone asked him about the rivalry between them and Tennessee State historical HBCU rivalry, Southern Heritage, et cetera, et cetera. You can go fill in a bunch of words, however many words you want, to emphasize the importance of the matchups. He says, I don't care.
Wow.
Take with that what you will. That's what I want to put out. Just speaking about showmanship, individualism over program, team, history, tradition, et cetera, et cetera. Kurt, you can continue.
So dig this here, okay? Prime and I, Coach Prime, are both men. We're around the same age, okay? And I got a whole bunch of stories that people will verify about what I did when I was in college. You got a whole bunch of stories. He's got a whole bunch of stories that are televised of what he did in college. And I know a whole bunch of people that know him. So I know the other stories. I'm a chaplain, and he's saying stuff like that. Brother, grow up. Brother, mature. Brother, be about your people. Brother, don't leech. Don't leech off the system. Or better yet, let somebody else have their own turn. Because if you don't want to play Tennessee State, then go play the University of Tennessee. Go play the Mississippi State and see how that works out. No, my man, go play the Thundering Herd of Marshall and see how that works out. Go play Boise State. No, go play Hawaii or go play Michigan. Because see, here's the thing. Every now and again, a school like FAMU will play Florida State. And they take that A whooping. And guess what? The school benefits from it with the money and the exposure. I mean, I got a ball out nephew that played for Lincoln University, and they played exhibition game at FSU. And that's the first time some of those kids will be on national TV. And you better win and win big, and you better make friends with everybody you can in the media, because once the media turns against you, then they become investigators. And all that stuff that I know and others know will manifest itself again. It just ain't right.
That's crazy. I ain't even
Go ahead, Malika. If you want to continue to add something
No, I
before
was
Kirk
saying I
continues
didn't
to
know he
college
said
football
I
on
didn't
that.
know he said that. I didn't know he said that last night. That's crazy. I'm surprised it didn't come up on my Bleacher Report or something like that, or my
Well, and that's
Twitter.
because the media, is giving him a pass right now. But he said it just like I said it. And as our listening audience grows, we got to be careful what we say, because no matter how large we get, we said it and it's in the media. And guess what, y'all? I'll bag up anything I got to say any way it need to be said,
All right, no cap.
legally or any other way. That's garbage, man. How you gonna do that to black people? How you gonna do that to the Tennessee State? Okay, y'all just like when it comes to hoop, y'all, Jackson State got my man Lindsey and Detroit, and Tennessee State got my man Carlos Rogers. They was both lottery picks.
And Mo's coaching now, Mo Williams.
Well, there you go. So who's next? Morehouse? They're gonna be talking about Morehouse? We got Edwin Moses. That ain't right. The poo-poo, the black college. What do you mean it's not? Rashard,
yeah, go
are
ahead.
you telling me the truth about? Did he say it? Because I didn't read it.
Yeah, no, he said it.
Oh, okay.
John Carlo, shout out John Carlo over there at the Commercial Appeal in Memphis. He wrote the column about it. He's a columnist over there. He wrote the column about it. About how or why Deion Sanders should care about the rivalry.
Okay. Well, then maybe I'm gonna write an article and it being rolling out about it.
Oh, there it is. But like you said, when I'm sorry, I blanked out. When Malik said he was surprised he didn't see it on the national platform, and Kurt responded, that's because the media isn't holding him accountable.
So I'm not
it'd be nice that
because I just don't want to be a crazy, angry old man from Detroit.
No, it'd be nice if also that the local paper over there had someone to hold him accountable. But yeah, so that's that. That's that. And yeah. So you say U of M, Nebraska firing their coach after losing to the fake GSU, GS, Georgia Southern. That was some. I'm sorry for letting the personal stuff in there, but Georgia Southern State, the school from Statesboro, Georgia, they beat Nebraska. The next day, Nebraska coach is fired. I think it's kind of crazy. Fire someone after one game. Upsets happen. App State had another upset. Go ahead.
But here's the thing though, and because you had that affiliation with them, I didn't want to put you on the spot. That's why I said Appalachian State. But Georgia Southern, for the last 30 years, every now and again, will put their left and their right foot in a major or a mid-major behind.
Florida. They beat Florida.
Right. They, perennial, they've been a thorn. What they 1AA or something? Or they all the way live?
They were, but they're all the way D1. They're BCS or whatever it's called now.
Yeah. Same thing as Boise State, so that's all right. But Scott Frost's problems was bigger. Everybody's not going to be the Iowa State Cyclones coach. Everybody's not going to be Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer 10 years ago, 12 years ago or more, was the head coach at Bowling Green.
That was definitely more than 12 years. 12 years ago, he's probably at Florida 12 years ago.
Bro, I still think I can dunk though. So time still escapes me sometimes. So, but what I'm saying is, a lot of times people make the jumps too quick. And Scott was down there at Central Florida, balled out there. Couldn't make it in the league as nothing. And like oftentimes they do, the reason why people think they can push critical race theory is because of stuff like that. The still thing is, all you got to, if you're white, sometimes all you got to do is get a haircut, and you can be assistant coach. And it's still sad, but
How do you feel about the Miami Dolphins coach, what is his last name? McDaniel, Coach McDaniel.
Oh, yeah.
But he started off as a ball boy and got a haircut, got an assistant coaching job, became an assistant for a few years, and now he's the head coach of Miami. And they got a pick, they got an extra draft pick for it because of the Rooney Rule, because he's technically, he claims black.
You talking about Eric Spoelstra, ain't you?
No. That's another Miami coach who started off in the film room. But Mike McDaniel, he started off as a ball boy, I think, I want to say the Broncos, but it might not be the Broncos. It might just be a random team. But yeah, and worked his way up, got an assistant coaching job, and now he's a head coach. He's only Mike McDaniel's very young. He might be in his 30s still.
No comment. Is Sean McVay older than Tom Brady?
Sean
McVay is younger.
Huh? Sean McVay is not older than Tom Brady, right? Okay. But see, just like they do us with Jackie Robinson, they're gonna be like, "Well, have either one of you heard of a Mike Tomlin?"
Shout out
right along.
Is Mike Tomlin and who was the one? Oh, the old Bengals coach, the one black exception who would never get fired no matter how many times he get eliminated in the first round.
Marvin Lewis.
Marvin Lewis.
Marvin Lewis.
The one black man that didn't lose his job no matter how many times he lost in the first round of the playoffs.
But Jim Caldwell and Lovie Smith lose their jobs with 9-7 records.
Lovey didn't win today. It was a tie.
The coach over there, the old Dolphins coach, the one who started who sued the NFL, Flores. That was his name, Robert Flores.
Yeah, Brian.
Yeah, Brian Flores. There we go. To have a winning record, and they're like, "You went in too many games. We gotta fire you."
Mm-hmm. Well, you sure he wasn't Tom Flores' love child?
No, I'm sure.
Y'all do know who Tom Flores is, right?
He's a singer.
No, he used to be the coach for the Raiders.
Oh, I was way off.
No.
Shout out Tom Flores.
Yeah. Malik, you gotta pull the picture up of Tom Flores, man.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Malik. Okay. So yeah, there's a lot of upsets with App State, Georgia Southern, but yeah, these are all schools who always upset teams, and Georgia State was, this close to beating UNC for the second time in 3 weeks. No, third time in 3 weeks. UNC went all the way down to the wire. I think it was like Coastal Carolina. They like won 63-62 last week. The week before that, FAMU gave them a good scare with half their team, and Georgia State should have beat them last night. So UNC very teetering with that 3-0 record.
Boy, that's a hairstyle right there.
I know.
That's a great hairstyle.
The ladies love that hair, man. That's he had to be a player.
Hall of Fame.
He was trying to hold on to it the late years. You see it right there. Oh, speaking of the Hall of Fame, shout out to Swing Cash, that's family over there for rolling out for her being inducted into the Hall of Fame, Basketball Hall of Fame this past weekend. Tim Hardaway, I was about to say junior.
Wait a minute. Swing Cash is from Detroit.
Oh
I knew she used to play for Detroit. Is she from Detroit? She
Did
used to
she used
play
to play
for
for
the
the
Shot.
Detroit Shock?
Yeah, she used to play for the Shot with Cheryl Ford, Karl Malone's daughter.
And Tim Hardaway used to coach for the Pistons. No,
Ain't no
or
way.
U of M, one of the one. Either the Pistons or U of M.
Well, his son went to U of M.
No, and I know Tim Hardaway.
Well, there it is. Well,
Yeah.
congratulations to Tim Hardaway, rolling out ties as well. Manu Ginobili. Who
I love
was
Manu.
I think it was Lindsey Wellen who got in this year on the women's side as well. And George Karl. Shout out to Coach Karl. Who else got inducted this year? Those are the ones that I can remember off the top of my head. Was this year Yolanda Griffin went in, or was that last year? I think that was last year Yolanda Griffin went in. But salute to all the inductees, class of 2022. Tough act to follow. Tough act to follow when you got Kobe Bryant, Kevin Garnett, Tim Duncan. But congratulations nonetheless to those legends being inducted this past weekend in Springfield, Massachusetts. Also this week, salute to NBA 2K. NBA 2K sent us a gaming code or review code to review it. So you will see a review soon enough on Out of Bounds, if not this week, some maybe next week or something like that, where we review the game. So yeah, shout out to 2K23.
Shout out. Game of the year.
Is there anything else before we sign off here, gentlemen?
Just a highlight for the NFL. Everything went as expected. Games were tight. More so an injury update. Najee may be hurt, Najee Harris. It looks like TJ Watt could be potentially out for the season. But all the games were good. The Pittsburgh game, nail biter. Houston and Indianapolis ended in a tie. Aaron Rodgers for the second year bombed the first game, but the Packers always end up being 12 and whatever.
That's true.
We spoke to what the Falcons and the Lions did. Patrick Mahomes blew out Kyler Murray. He looks normal. But D Hops will be back one day. That's really just a rundown. The NFL consistently puts the best product out in sports.
Lamar betting on himself, turning down the money.
145 million guaranteed. Who does that?
Yeah. But yeah, that's it. But he said he wants Deshaun Watson money, which is the richest in NFL history. I think that's a bit of a request, but who knows? I mean, Deshaun Watson got that money after coming off of, legal issues, and which he's still in. So we'll see. And he's never won a ring either.
Bro, envy is green, not purple.
Yeah, he didn't get. They might give it to him. Who knows? I wouldn't be surprised.
What has he done? That dude, he's got to take the 145 and run, because his style.
155.
Okay, thank you. His style of running, his style of play is, he just looked like he could be, it's just, who else is from Louisville? He could be Teddy Bridgewater.
As far as what?
Getting hurt, man.
Oh, I was about to say, Kurt.
Teddy Bridgewater was all of that before he got hurt.
You guys have to stop doing this to Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson won MVP. He's up there with Pat. Because someone else was saying, so I saw a comment that was like, he can end up like RG3. I was like, RG3 was never MVP.
We talking about the bread, though. We talking about the style of play.
No, I hear that. But when people make play comparisons,
getting paid more than Patrick Mahomes if he would have took that contract.
What Pat got 500, right? I'm not sure how much guaranteed, but he got 500.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
500 is that's insane.
He got half a billion.
Half a Billy.
Wow. I ain't got nothing. I ain't got nothing to say.
Yeah, that 500 Billy made me quiet myself just thinking about it. But I guess fellas, is there anything NBA? No, not that I could think of. FIBA World
Hey, I know
Championships.
it's gonna make you mad, but I got the picture to prove it. My wife caught the plane with the Pistons coach the other day as she was going to New York this week.
Oh
They
wow,
took
what do you know you guys have some hype around you guys this year. Like people are expecting you guys to like really push for a playoff. The East is going to be difficult, and we'll get there when we get there at the end of September, early October. But there's 9 playoff teams in the East, and only 8 are going to make it, and that's not even counting the Pistons.
You like the New York
man.
Yankees?
In fact, that's what my shirt says. Whatever.
Damn.
You know, we do have to shout out WNBA Game 1 finals just ended. It was a nail biter. I haven't watched the game or the highlights yet, but I believe the Las Vegas Aces won 69-67, or it was 67-64 against the Connecticut Sun in Game 1. So Asia Wilson, a couple of wins away from finally her first professional championship. So we'll see what happens there, fellas. Let's start with Queen. Queen of the week.
Serena Williams.
I was saying.
Serena Williams, clean sweep. And shout out to Coco as well, Coco Golf, for making a good run in the U.S. Open, and then also doing the entire explaining the period thing to the old reporter. Also shout out to Sue Bird, shout out Sylvia Fowles as always, finishing up their careers or whatever in the WNBA. King of the week.
Based on what I heard, Kenny Washington.
I like that. Dang, I can't pronounce dude's name. That was in the U.S. Open
Oh, the
too.
tennis guy.
Is it Tefio?
Wait a minute, Malik, don't
Francis
even try it.
You right.
Tell Malik, don't even try it. You tell Rashard Milligan that after he says Miami's quarterback name, to please pronounce that tennis dude's name properly.
Tua Tagovailoa and Francis Tyfo.
There we go.
And the way that I remember it is like his nickname of the Big Foe. So
Big Foe.
Francis Tyfo, Tua Tagovailoa.
Well, bro, Rashard Milligan, hell of a reporter, hell of a podcast co-host, all around good guy. Definitely, you want him, and I'm his agent. You want him to read all obituaries and MC all high school, college, and any other kind of graduations or retirement parties.
No,
he will not mess your name up.
He will not mess your name up.
I appreciate the kind words, Kurt. Another Queen of the Week mention, Flau'jae Johnson, 18 years old, hasn't played her first game with LSU yet. Basketball player / rapper in the year of NIL, signed to Jay-Z's Rock Nation. She got her first shoe deal with Puma before her first game. Salute to Flau'jae, friend of the family and of the show as well. 18 years old.
Right. And my aunt may be watching this, so please explain what INL means.
Yes, NIL, name, image, and likeness. It's something that Dan even mentioned earlier. It's where players, college players, athletes, they can get paid for their name, image, and likeness. So they can go on commercials, they can do billboards, they can do endorsement deals, just as long as they don't wear like their team apparel on the things.
Right. So dig this here. It's about as big for the athlete as it was for the attorney to be able to advertise in some states. And to give you a little background in history, every fire starts with a spark. They need to be talking about Ed O'Bannon daily, and as a result of that, because Ed O'Bannon was the first player to really have the courage to step out there with traction. And guess where he played basketball at? UCLA. To get some traction with this. And Eddie O'Bannon been gone for a long time, off the sports market.
So salute to Ed O'Bannon. And I also wanted to my king of the week. It's a split. I mentioned them at the beginning of the show, but Bubba Wallace for getting the win in the NASCAR circle this week. In Atlanta, he had the lead right there and then lost crash right at the finish line. So he got it done this week. Salute to Bubba and Francis Tifo, like you guys said. And salute to Kenny Washington as well for being an actor / world model / history barrier breaker, all of that stuff. Yeah.
We got toy kings. We got toy kings.
So shout out to all the kings. Shout out to all the queens. Shout out to you all, kings and queens, for watching this Out of Bounds this week. That is it. Rashad Milligan, Curtis Johnson, Malik Brown, producer / co-host. Until next week, take care.